Hi, hello. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay. Hi, everybody. As Marion mentioned, I am part of the DAFNI team. So I'm a product owner and tech lead on the team. And I am going to give you a brief overview of some aspects of the platform, which will then be followed up with by Tom Gowland. So this is the login page that we have for the platform. I mean, it's a lot to take in, but if you had a couple more minutes, you've noticed there isn't a registration button there. So that's the first thing to say. If you're interested in getting access to this, then you need to get in contact with us. Marion is a good first port of call for that, or Tom, as you're probably more familiar with him, in order to get a username and password on the site. So once you've logged in, then you'll see these key areas that Brian mentioned. So data, models, workflows. We also have a manage assets section at the end here, which I'll just say a couple of things about. So in the platform, our aim is to support private licensed data sets as well as open public ones. At the moment, Brian alluded to the fact that the platform is currently constantly in development, and this manage assets area is one of those regions. So you can have private assets on the, by asset I mean data, model or workflow, and to come soon visualizations in some time. So you can have private assets on the platform, but you can share these with individuals as well. At the moment, that's done through admins, but we'll increase the support for that going forward. So I'm going to talk about the data side, and then Tom Gowland will follow up with models and workflows in a second, once I'm done. So the data pages are recently renovated to give the best search experience to our users that we can. So you'll see up here that we said we have 573 data sets found. There again, I can mention the private assets aspect. There are actually, so I'm logged in as a non-administrative user, which is the standard user account for anybody who joins DAFNI. There are actually another 200 data sets on there, which are private, which we can't see. So as I say, we're focusing on searchability of the data. So to provide users with the best visibility for their results possible. So you have the standard tools, we can type in a search term and get some results there from that particular search term. This search term, if you're interested, searches the title, the keywords and the description. We can also do a date search, so choose a start date and an end date, and this should be searching the temporal range of the data set itself. This is something that we ask users to provide themselves, so there's an element of trust that users are providing the right information for their data set, but given that, then we allow you to search for a data set which is within your study period, essentially. We can also filter by source. So again, the platform is in development. So if we were doing this demo in 2 weeks' time, these values with 0, you wouldn't be bothered with them. You would just be seeing the areas that are available to non-administrative users. But here you can see we have the source of the data. We also have a special output here, which is workflows. So Tom will tell you about workflows. Data sets which come out of a workflow, so out of a series of model steps, will have this DAFNI workflows tag on them, so you can just filter and focus in on those. So example, CityCat. So CityCat is a model on DAFNI at the moment. This is quite a long list, which will be reduced down, hopefully by the time you're having a look at it yourself. And we also support the definition of subject areas. This is using an Inspire vocabulary. As you can see, the majority of our data is the publicly available data is in the society category, and this is in fact no-miss data, so the census outputs. And with apologies for the zeros, this again, if you can only cope with one particular type of data in your research, then you can use this section to focus in on that particular format. So let's choose something that everyone's comfortable with. So Excel files, for example, will give you only Excel data. And I wonder if we have any JSON. Okay, good. Yeah, so CSVs, I think, is probably what I should have ticked there. We have a lot of that data. Okay, so to add your own data, we encourage users to do this and get on board in providing their own data. We have recently updated our metadata schema, so it's quite comprehensive at the moment. but hopefully I think we found a nice balance between giving you too much to fill in and again giving that good search functionality. So I'll whiz through a quick example of this. To add your data to the system, you can drop files or browse into this area, and then you click and press upload. This is done separately to uploading the metadata, and the reason for this is it supports users uploading large data sets. So when I press upload, this should happen fairly quickly because they're small files, but if you had a massive file, then you could carry on and fill out the metadata while that's uploading. So that's uploading, and then we can begin to add in some it's done for the data set itself. So I will just put in some values here. So a title, a description, put quite a nice long description. Identifiers, this is used for linking to permanent identifiers for that data set. So typically a DOI, but essentially the validation on this is an HTML, is HTTP, so any web address, but we would, please stick to permanent identifiers. These are those subjects that we were filtering by on the search page. So for example, climate, meteorology, atmosphere. This is using the Inspire top categories according to ISO 19115, if you're interested. We can then add in some extra granularity on themes. Again, that's from an Inspire vocabulary. Both of these I expect will evolve over time. Tom was talking about vocabularies to define data structures on DAFNI, and I think these will evolve to reflect those as the project continues. So choose a language, you have the top ones at the top. Some keywords, which are, as I've mentioned, for searching. If your data conforms to a standard, like an ISO standard or something, that you can declare it here. Then we have a section on dataset coverage. So as I mentioned on the temporal side of things, we're asking users to self-declare the spatiotemporal coverage of their data. The reason for doing that, for requesting that from the user rather than auto-generating it from the data, is that we hold all this data at the moment in object storage. So it really could be anything. Could be an Excel file, could be a text file, could be a shape file. So it's kind of out of scope at the moment for us to be examining all of those different data types. So at the moment we work together and ask users to self-declare the spatial coverage of their data, and for that we're leveraging geonames to provide a broad bounding box there. Temporal coverage, pick a date. So say I have sensor data which covers this month. Then we have a little bit of information about who created this data set. So this again, this organization name is one of the searchable fields, and I'll show you that it becomes, you link that as well. You can add in a person, you should say when the data has been created, you can add an update frequency if you want. If you're holding your data in any intermediary areas, for example, data.gov, you can declare that here. And then we do request that you provide a contact name and email address here, so that if users have questions about your data, then they have somebody that they can come to contact to ask about that. It's a very standard way of doing things. Thanks, Marion. We mandate that all data sets provide a license. So at the moment, we don't have a computational way of enforcing that license, though that is on our roadmap in time. So at the moment, the onus is on the data owner who provides that data, who then handles, who has to ensure adherence to that license in anyone that they're sharing the data with. So it's an data owner responsibility on the platform at the moment to adhere to that license, but you can change that pretty quickly. We define an open license for it as standard, assuming that you're happy to share your data with anyone, but you can change that, as I said, and then you can put some rights data. We also support versioning on the platform. If you're familiar with GitHub, this is the equivalent of a commit message, so that you can then look back through the commit history of a particular data set and work out which version of it you'd like to use. So first upload, thanks Marion. And then finally read first and then accept terms and conditions and publish. And you will see the data set. Oh, good, thank you. Pop up at the top there. It's always risky when you're doing a demo. And then we can look at the data set here, and you can see all of that metadata now presented very nicely on the page, and every data set would have this type of page, some additional metadata down here and the keywords. And in this top section here, you've got information that you need to incorporate that model into, incorporate that data set into a model. So the ID and the version ID of that data. And then just finally, you can go back, as I said, we support versioning, so you can re-update these files, or you can change the metadata and create a new version of the data set, or you can ultimately delete it from the catalogue if you wish to, which I will do here to finish. And with that, I will pass over to Tom